Morning. This is a virtual PBX dash admin training. I'm going to give people a couple minutes to join us here on YouTube. Also making sure that audio is going through clearly. And it looks like that is the case. All right. So the training takes approximately an hour and a half, sometimes a little longer, depending on load times in relation to the web pages. Feel free to make use of the YouTube chat feature to ask questions about particular features as I go over them. We record these trainings, and we've recorded all of them going back to since we've started, so you can always come back later if other job duties or life interrupts you and you need to come back and watch it again. Also, it gives you a link so that you could share it with other staff members who need to be a part of the training. All right, it's 10 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. So up here you see our dash login page. This is just at dash.virtualpbx.com. You can get there from the virtualpbx.com website. Just look for the blue bar towards the top of the page and click on the login link. That will take you to this page. In general, for admins, I do recommend bookmarking this page. And for any user who make use of the ACD feature, they should probably also bookmark this page. Now, to log in, we need three pieces of information. The first piece is your email address. That's your unique identifier for you within Dash. Right, then we need your password, which is hopefully emailed to you. And then lastly, we need the account name right here. Right, this is typically your company name. Now, if you don't remember your password or you never got the email with your password, then down here, just above the sign-in bar, there's a forgot your info link. You want to click on that, and you need to fill out this form. Now, the first field, right, email address, we have to have that. Down here, you can choose either of these two, right? One of them, right? Either account phone number or the account name. Click on reset password. This will then hopefully tell you, the system will say, hey, we sent you an email. That email will contain a link that signs you in temporarily, basically allows you enough time to log in, change your password, and then it logs you back out, right? Takes you back out to this page. So then you can type in password, and you also have the option here to click on the Remember Me box. And now let's go. Now, for me, I've logged into this test account many, many times, so the system is going to default me right here to the dashboard page. If it's your first time logging in, the system instead will send you to your personal account page. You can always get there by clicking on your name towards the top right. And here we are on my personal account page, right? My user page. You see here on the left, user is highlighted. And the main thing, again, most people change is click here on the password box so you can change your password, right? So if you need to change your own password, you click on your name at the top, click on the password field, change your password, right? If you're dealing with someone else, right, then you would go under the users tab. Now over here, I'm assistant admin, so I also have the account level settings. The most common thing that's changed is time zone and language. So time zone, what time zone your system is based off of. Language would be the display language within the web pages: English, French, German, or Russian. Now, as I mentioned, this is a test account. So for your accounts, you'll have a billing section, which basically refers you to Stripe, which we're using for billing purposes. And that's usually for like updating your payment information. Now, also that first time you log in, right, the Dash Wizard will be here, so there'll be little pop-ups telling you what certain things are. Once you're done, click close over here towards the top right, and then you'll be here on the dashboard page. So up here at the top again, you can click on your name at any time to get to your account, your user page, so you can change your password. Right, primary purpose. For most of you, to the right of your name, there'll be a toggle here for D&D, or do not disturb. Right now, that basically allows you to basically tell the system, hey, you're not taking calls, send calls to voicemail. The reason I do not have it here is because my user is part of an ACD queue, and the do not disturb switch and the ACD queues do not work well together. So once I was assigned as a member of the queues, the system took the D&D toggle off. Then we have the question mark icon here, or the help icon. Right, these three fields will always be here. Right, so first up, we have chat with us. This opens up the chat window at the bottom right of your browser, so you can speak to one of our support team members in real time, and they can walk you through a particular guide or feature. To learn more, this will open up a new tab and take you to our support pages, so you can see the guides that we have written. The guides will typically have screenshots, so to show you what's going on, and in some cases, we have short videos about those particular features. The online store, that opens up a new tab. It takes you to store.virtualpbx.com, and that's where you would order things like a VoIP phone or a router, etc. Now, there is a fourth field here. This can be populated. This will show up once you've added a web phone to your user, and typically by the next time you log in, it might be a little bit longer. And then once that's there, that means it opens up a new tab in your browser that goes to webphone.virtualpbx.net. This allows you to use Chrome or Firefox on your computer to make and receive calls. So this does count as a VoIP device. All right, here in the center of the page, we have my total users. I have 23, right? So these are people like my staff members who make and receive calls. Generally speaking, most of our plans are based on a per user basis. So adding more users increases your bill. Total devices, I have 39, and then a breakdown. Now this is a general breakdown. It's not super specific. First up, I have SIP phone. This is a physical VoIP device. Right, so piece of physical hardware sits on a desk, connects typically via Ethernet to your internet, lets you make and receive calls. This is like a Polycom phone, Cisco, Yealink is pretty common as well. Oh, I'm sorry, I was on the wrong thing. Soft phone, software application, works on a device, right? Uses your internet connection to make and receive calls. This can be the VirtualPBX soft phone app, or it can be a third-party soft phone app. All right. Web phone, that's that Chrome or Firefox based device. Again, allows you to make and receive calls via your internet connection. SIP phone, this is what I was previously talking about. This is that physical hardware. Again, connects via Ethernet typically, lets you make and receive calls. A cell phone, and that's just a cell phone number that we're sending calls to. Down here, I have unregistered devices. I have 4. Sorry, this is 2. Wow, I need new glasses. And this is in reference to my SIP phones, the physical hardware. So, and that just means the system can't connect to that device, whether that's because the device simply isn't been plugged in, or they lost internet connection at that particular location, or there's like a router setting that's causing a problem. Total numbers, I have 34 phone numbers on this account. Your account includes at least some number of phone numbers as part of your monthly plan price. Once you go over that allotment, you would pay on a per phone number basis. If you just signed up, I would double check the pricing page. It will be spelled out there, usually a little bit further down from the initial block. If you're an older customer and you just been said, hey, you're in charge of the phone system, you'd want to reach out to our account services team to determine how many phone numbers are included and what your overage is for extra phone numbers. All right, then we have the first breakdown here is assigned numbers and spare numbers. Assigned number means you're using it, right? Someone can dial that number and be able to speak to someone or leave a voicemail or join a conference or be sending a fax. Right? It's in some fashion in use. Spare number counts towards your allotment, but you're not currently using it. Right? So for instance, let's say you had a Christmas promotion running. You had a phone number dedicated to that promotion, and now that promotion's over, you say, okay, let's take that number, put it in spare. Right? So that means you're not getting calls on a promotion that's no longer valid. They would get a busy tone. The other typical use case is like you're expanding into a new location that has a new area code. So you grab the phone number so that way you have it ready so you can prepare your marketing materials, but you're not putting in service yet because there's no one at that location yet. Right. So then we have USDID and US toll free. US toll free is US Canada toll free, right? 800 number, 888, 877, all the way down to 833 currently. Right? USDID, that just means a US local phone number. Right? So you can have a phone number in Chicago, Illinois, show up as a USDID. Same as if you had one in Los Angeles, California, still a USDID. Right. Conference bridges. Oh, wait, I should point out, you can also have international phone numbers on your account if you're so inclined. You'd want to email our porting team. That's porting at virtualpbx.com. They need to know the city and country that you're interested in having a phone number in, and they will let you know if that's possible and what, if any, other requirements exist. Right? Those requirements come from the country that you want the phone number in. Right? Their version of the FCC would say, hey, this is what we require in order to get a phone number. It's going to vary from country to country. Right. Conference bridges, we have 6. That means I've enabled conferencing on 6 of my users. That means they can host or moderate a conference. You can always have more, right? There's no additional fee for having multiple people host a conference. Right, over here to the right, this main phone number box, I've got, looks like 5 phone numbers, right? So these 5 phone numbers all behave the same fashion, right? They all go to the same location. They all play the same main greeting. The conference room number, you can have multiple conference room numbers, but that's what this is the phone number everyone's going to dial to join the conference, whether they're your vendors, your clients, or your staff members. They're all going to dial this number first and then be prompted to enter the conference room number and then the PIN number. The fax box number, this is your main fax box number, meaning that this is the number people would use to fax a document to you. You can only have the one main fax box number. The company directory, this lets you download a CSV file, shows all your users, their names, their extension numbers, and their primary devices. The soft phone directory, this is for use specifically with the VirtualPBX desktop soft phone application. So for anyone using our soft phone app on Windows or Mac OS, you would download this file, upload it to the soft phone app on your computer, and this will allow you to see the status of the other VirtualPBX soft phones on the account. Right? It's a way to see presence if your whole staff is using the VirtualPBX soft phone. Now, if you have staff members who use a mix of devices, right? Let's say you have a colleague John who's got a Yealink phone, the VirtualPBX soft phone, and his cell phone as devices on his user. The soft phone will only show the status of the other soft phone, right? So you won't be able to see if your coworker John is on a call on his Yealink phone or even on his cell phone, right? You'd only see if he's on a call using his VirtualPBX soft phone. Store discount code, just for being a Dash customer, you get a discount code for use in our online store, right? That's store.virtualpbx.com. And then the account realm. The account realm is unique for each account. It's used for a couple different things. So if you're using a third-party device, right, third-party soft phone, this would be one of the 3 pieces of information you would need in order to program or provision that application. The other thing the account realm is used for is for faxing out. So on Dash, you don't need to log into your Dash account to send a fax out. You just need to have your email permission set up for, say, your email, your company's email domain. Then you just create an email like you normally would. In the to field, right, instead of putting, say, your cousin Bob's email address, you put the plus sign, the number 1, area code and phone number, little @ symbol, and then your account realm. Right? Then you just need to attach a PDF or TIFF file, and you would click send. Right? So the system looks at the to field, the from field, and the attachment. It does not send anything that you put in the subject line of the email or in the body of the email. Right? It only will send one attachment. All right, up here, we're along the line where it says sandbox training. I have this caller ID box. This is your company caller ID. So this pull down, which unfortunately doesn't work properly here on my streaming software, so I apologize. But you can select any of your main phone numbers. Right? That becomes your default number for several different things, like your VoIP phones, for example. Right, so you can select any of your main numbers. The company caller ID name field, this is optional. This allows you to enter up to 15 characters, and that includes spaces or special characters, so 15 max, that we then associate with your phone number for the purposes of outbound caller ID name, right? CNAME is an industry term. But again, that's not something you have to do. The company emergency information, or E911, this wants a North American address, and then you would click Save Changes. Now, if you entered information in the company caller ID name field, after you click Save Changes, we transmit that information to the other carriers who support CNAME. It takes them approximately 3 business days to update their information on their side. Something to be aware of, not every carrier that your call can route through supports CNAME. That's a individual business decision. Most of them do, right? Like pretty much any big name character or carrier that you've heard of supports CNAME to some degree. It's usually the smaller or regional carriers that don't. The big caveat, though, is with cell phones. Cell phone providers actually do not participate in CNAME. And in fact, many of them want to charge their subscribers an additional monthly fee in order to have CNAME show up on calls that come to their cell phones. Like my carrier wanted like $10 a month. I'm like, no, I don't need that for that amount. Not at that price point. The other thing to know about CNAME is that what VirtualPBX does is we would provide what's called provisioning, right? So this is what we send out when the call from your, like say you pick up your yelling phone, you make an outbound call, right? We send the information that you have here. The receiving side, right? That carrier gets to decide if they're going to accept the information we send, or they can decide to look up their own database and use that information instead, or just say, hey, we're not sending any CNAME information at all. We'll just send the phone number. That's not something we can control. All right, hold music. This allows you to set a default hold music file for all your staff members. Now, hold music on Dash is defined as after a call has reached your user and the user has pressed hold on their VoIP phone. That's when this file will play. Now, you can upload your own file by clicking Upload here. Click Browse to find the file on your computer. You want to use a .mp3 or .wav, right? .wav. Ideally recorded in mono. That gives you some space, saving some space, because you can only upload a 1 megabyte file. Then you would hit the up arrow icon and then click on Save Changes. And now by default, all of your staff will have the same hold music file. Hours here is part of main number. So I'm just going to click on main number and work my way down. Assuming it loads properly here. Here we go. So first up, we have main company numbers. You see here all of my main numbers and what they are. Now down here towards the bottom of the field here, I have 2 options: add from spare numbers or buy new, right? So add from spare numbers is how you assign a number you already have that you're currently not using. And for instance, if I don't want to use one of these numbers as a main number any longer, so let us remove this middle one here. right? I would just unassign it. Now, when you unassign a number, that means you put it into spare numbers, right? So it's now part of my spare number group. It's not removed from my account yet, right? I won't get to that in for a little bit now. Now, if for instance, I wanted to add a number, one of my spare numbers, I click here and it shows here are your available spare numbers. So then I can reuse them. Right? So here's that 424 number I just unassigned. So if I click on the box in front of it and click add selected, I would add it back as a main number. Or I could reuse one of these 703 or 701 numbers. Now, by numbers is simply adding numbers to your account. So let's say your account includes 5 phone numbers as part of your monthly plan price, and you only have one main number, right? When you click by numbers, you're not being charged anything for it. It's just now you'll have 2 numbers out of your 5. It's just how the engineers decided to say, hey, this is how you add numbers. Now, when you click on by numbers, you have the option for local or toll-free. Toll-free, you choose the toll-free prefix you want to use. So let's say 855. And then you click search. The system is going to pull up a list of numbers. And these are the ones that are available. Now, you can scroll down and it'll think about it some more and then provide more numbers. Now, this list of numbers is what we refer to as a dynamic list, meaning you're technically competing with other people in real time. Right? So you wouldn't want to click on add number and then walk away and go to lunch, for instance. Right? Because you could come back and try to click by numbers and it may not complete because someone may have actually completed the process for that full number while you're, out having hopefully a healthy lunch, or at least a tasty lunch. Let's say at least a tasty lunch. Right? But let's say I'm doing this all at once. I click on add. You can add multiple phone numbers at once. In this case, they would be adding them all as a main number. But then you click on by numbers. Now, the system is going here to verify that no one else bought the number while I was talking. Once it does that, then it says I'm adding it to the account and activating. And here it is. Right? Local numbers, similar process, but you need to know the area code. So you do a search for an area code. Now, any area code, including the toll-free prefixes, you can get this message. Right? Basically saying, hey, there's no numbers available. Now, this normally comes up for the big metropolitan areas, right? So 310 is a it's a Los Angeles-based area code. And this just means it's exhausted, right? There's no freely available 310 area code phone numbers. Now, if I have to have one, you could email our porting team at porting@virtualpbx.com, and they can attempt to do what's called a back order for a phone number. There's no guarantee that you'll get one. And we cannot give you an ETA because we're waiting on someone to give up their 310 phone number. What we normally recommend is use Google and do a Google search for 310 area code overlay. Right? That will tell you that the overlay for 310 is area code 424. Right? Overlay in telecom just means an area or one or more area codes that have the same geographic area. Right? They cover the same spot or same cities. And again, you'll see a list of phone numbers that you can add to your account. You would click on by numbers, and it would show up here. Now, you have a little gear icon here next to these numbers. You can update the caller ID for a specific number, right? So they can make sure you have consistent outbound CNAM, right, for all of your phone numbers. But the other thing you might want to look at is turning on inbound CNAM, right? So that way the name, if there's a name associated with a phone number when they're calling in, it will show up on your staff members' phones. Right, E911, this allows you to put a specific address for each of your phone numbers for the purposes of E911. So you can do this for each phone number, and that means, and this allows you then on your VoIP phones to assign a specific phone number for E911 purposes only, right? So if your staff member Susan, she works out of her house, you can say, hey, this phone number has this address associated with it, and for Susan's home location, and you can assign that to her VoIP phone, so that if she ever has to dial 911 from her VoIP phone, emergency services gets the address for her location versus your corporate headquarters. Prepend is a VoIP phone feature. You can add text that will show up as part of the inbound caller ID on your staff members' VoIP phones, right? So it's a way to give them a heads up about what the call might be about. So like your location or special promo or have you. And then you would click on Save Changes. I'm going to go ahead and unassign that because we don't need too many phone numbers here on this account. All right, next up, once you have phone numbers assigned, you can then look at your office hours strategy. Now, by default, your account will start off as 24-hour open office, meaning the system is ready to take calls. But most people often choose to go to custom office hours. If you do so, for each day of the week that you're open, put a check mark in front of the day. And then in these boxes here to the right, select your open hours in 24-hour or military time. Right? If you leave it unchecked, it means you're closed. Down here at the bottom, you have the option here to say that you're closed for lunch. Right? That means the system goes into lunch mode. Right? If you put a check mark here, then you set your lunch hours again in that 24-hour or military time. And that just means every time at this time of day, the system goes into lunch mode. And if you make any changes, you click on Save Changes. All right, office holidays. First up, if you're closed for holidays, put a check mark here. And over here to the right, we click on Add Holiday, and you have three options. Right, you've got single day, date range, and advanced. All right, single day, like I have here for New Year's Eve. Right, you give it a name, and then you select the month and the date. Right, and you click on Save Changes. Date range, like I have for Christmas break, right? I give it a name, I give it a start date and an end date. Now, there's no year indicator here, so as a precaution, we recommend that you don't have a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. I haven't run into any customers that have had a problem with a date range that includes New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, but again, we just say it as a precaution. And advanced is like we have here for Thanksgiving. You select the month, and then this middle pull down, you have your options of 1st through 5th, as well as last, and then the day of the week. Right? And then you would click on Save Changes. If you want to remove a holiday, you would click on the little trash icon here at the right, and then click on Save Changes. All right, incoming call handling. So this is how the system handles calls to your main numbers, right? So these 4 phone numbers I left up here at the top. How is the system handling calls during my open hours? I go over here to the right, I have an after hours tab. And then lastly, during holidays. Now, the same basic options exist for all of these. These first 3 exist for everybody, right? The last one only shows up in a couple certain instances. Now, those instances are if our services team needed to make a custom or advanced call flow for you, or if you have an account with multiple auto attendants and you made one of those auto attendants available in main menu. Those are the primary 2. There are a couple others, but those are the ones that come up the most. Anyway, so calls during my open hours, I have it go to my virtual receptionist. This is a link. I can click on it. It's going to open up a big old box here. Now, on the left is your main menu. These are what people can press on their phone to navigate through your phone system. Right, so like if you called VirtualPBX, right, you had like 1 for sales, 2 for support, 4 for services, something like that. And then down here, you would click on Add Route. Right, this gives you a new row. Now, the first pull down, you have 0 through 9, the star key, and the default action. Right, the second pull down is where do you want it to go? Right, so here we go to the first one because that typically displays right. So first up, we have the directory, right? Dial by name directory, user directory, however you want to call it. Right, you can send a menu option to go to a specific person. Right, so it goes to that user, it rings their devices. If they don't pick up, it goes to their voicemail box. Go down here. Call queues. If you're making use of the ACD queues feature, then you can set a menu option to go to one of your queues. It's a call center feature. Usually, that's an upgrade feature. So typically, you, as far as I know, every customer who has them is paying extra for them. Groups is an included feature. This is departments, right? They're limited in routing options, but you can have it ring to multiple people, right? So groups are a simple version of queues. You can have it ring a menu option ring to a specific device, right? A specific phone. Now, if that phone doesn't have built-in voicemail, then you're relying on the caller to hang on. By default, the system will ring it for 20 seconds. You can send a menu option go to a specific voicemail box, right? Press 0 to leave a message. Fairly common. You can also have it menu option play a media file, right? Like an MP3. This would be for like hours of operation or directions. The downside is once the media file stops playing, the call ends. And then you have advanced call flows. Typically, we see this for if you're making use of submenuing. 1 for English, 2 for Spanish, right? Those would have their own menu options and their own greeting in their appropriate language, right? That's why you would have those set up here. Over here on the right, we have your greeting options. You have several different to choose from. First up is text-to-speech. This allows you to type in a greeting that the system will then read off, right, in a computerized robotic voice. There's no charge for these. Now, you're limited to 250 characters, not words. The system does not count spaces. The largest greeting I've been able to use is about 300 characters, but 250 has worked consistent. Another thing to know about the text-to-speech greeting, right? The system doesn't allow you to name the greeting. So it's going to name it for you. And in this case, it would name it as my main open hours menu TTS, right? Because, right, this is my open hours, right? This is my main menu, and it's a text-to-speech greeting. Now, if I go through this, hit update, save, and save changes, right? That greeting is now in place. I call in, I don't like it, or I forgot something, right? So then I come back in here and I can just type in, right? I can edit it on the fly, right? I click update, save, and save changes. But now I'm going to have 2 files named main open hours menu TTS, and I have no way to tell which one is which from any pull down menu. So if you use a text-to-speech greeting, after you create one, on the left-hand side, you want to click on, or when this box is no longer here, you want to click on your greetings tab, rename that file, at least like name it like main greeting 1, right? So just so you know which one it is. Right, upload your own file. You just click on the box here and find the file on your computer, right? .mp3.wav recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Then you'll click update, save, and save changes. Choose from a pre-existing recording. This is a pull down that shows all your media files. Hold music files, voicemail greetings, main greetings. That's why you want to give them names that you can recognize or differentiate between your different files. You record it over the phone. Now, the system says pick up a phone registered on this account. What that means is a VoIP phone on your account. That's the default. That's a security feature. Now, if, let's say, for instance, you ordered VoIP phones from us, right? So you ordered a couple of Yealink phones from us. They haven't shown up yet, but you want to record your greeting. What you would want to do is come down here to settings. And this one here that says allow outside recording, you want to turn that on, right? Then click save and save changes. Now, what that means is now you can call into your main number from any phone. Now, if you don't have a greeting in place, right, the system will tell you that the greeting for this menu has not been created yet, and then prompt you for the PIN number, right? This PIN number here, specific to this account at this time of day only, right? So only during my open hours, right? So if I called in at 8 p.m., which is after I've closed, this PIN number no longer works. It'll come up as an invalid entry, right? Now, if you already have a file, let's say you started off with text-to-speech greeting and you got feedback from your customer saying, hey, it's a little off-putting, or I wasn't sure it was really your business. So then you said, okay, well, let me record one over the phone with my voice. You call in, you'll hear that text-to-speech greeting play. You can enter your PIN number at that time. The system will recognize it and then walk you through recording the greeting over the phone. Now, if you have a greeting in place and you do that, just realize the system doesn't give you a chance to name the file. So it just reuses the file name of the file that's already in place, right? So main open hours menu TTS, you overwrite the content with your voice, but the file name in the system still says main open hours menu TTS until you change it. Professional recording services, when you click order, it will open up a new tab and take you to Snap Recordings, so partner company. They have like 100 voice actors and actresses to choose from. They have their own packages. They bill you directly, i.e. via credit card. And then they send you the file via email, right? So then you just upload your own file. All right, settings. First up here, number of retries on missed dial. This is how many times your inbound caller can make a mistake. Right, so caller calls in and they press 5. Well, that's not a valid menu option. And if I don't have an extension number 5, right, the system will say that's an invalid try. But I have this set to 1, so they get us one more try, right? One retry. System plays the greeting again, and then let's say they press 5 a second time for whatever reasons. In that instance, since I have this default action here, after that second attempt that failed, the system will automatically transfer the call to the default action. Now, if I click on this X here and I remove the default action, now after that second attempt, right, the system will say, we did not recognize your entry, goodbye, and end the call. Dialing timeout. This is how much time the system listens for an additional button press, right? So that in that example where the customer is pressing 5, the system is going to wait for 10 seconds to give that caller time to enter a second digit or even a third digit, right? So, they are looking up the extension number, right? So 5, the system waits for 10 seconds. Hopefully they can hit the next digit before that timer is completed. Now, normally I say take this down to like 5 instead of 10 because 10 seems like a long time. Number of retries, that can be, for most customers, that's usually anywhere from 0 to 3 for most. Allow outside recording. Again, this is for allowing you to record your main greeting with a cell phone or landline. We do typically recommend you leave that off, so that way someone can't randomly try to guess your PIN number to change your main greeting. Allow dialing extensions. By default, this is on, and that just simply means if the inbound caller comes in and enters a valid extension number, the system will transfer the call to that extension. Right? If I turn this off, that means my inbound callers can only press 1 or 2. Anything else is an invalid entry. And then this one here, suppress the playing of invalid entry. So after the second failed attempt, if I don't want the system to say, we did not recognize your entry, goodbye, I would turn this on, right? That suppresses that playing of that message. Now, this makes more sense when you have a default route, right? Because then you don't want a message playing. You're just saying, hey, we're transferring you to wherever. So any changes you make to your main menu, your greetings, or these settings, you need to click Save here on this box. It takes you back to your incoming call handling, and then you need to click Save Changes here. Right? After hours, you have the same basic options. Here, I have it going to the second option. So calls are coming here to my ring group that I call front desk. Right? Ideally, that means I'm ringing it to multiple people at the same time. If they're not able to answer the call, then it goes to the virtual receptionist. Now, this pull down, I don't know why you would set it to directory, but you could. Typically, though, people either select a specific user, potentially an ACD queue, right, one of your call queues, or a group, right? Because the idea here is that this is a live operator answer option. Right? Someone has a chance to answer the call first. If they're not able to, then it goes to the virtual receptionist. Again, this is a link Now, this is my after hours virtual receptionist, so I have a different menu option, and I likely have a different greeting. But again, save changes. Holidays here, I'm using the third option where I'm telling the system when calls come in, send it straight to this voicemail box that I selected. Now, this pull down has those other options, right? So I can send it to a user, I can send it to a group, I can send it to a queue, right? I can select a media file, so I can have a message saying, we're closed for the holidays or whatever holiday it might be that we're closed for. I can mention that specifically. I can ring a specific device, right? So I'm ringing our emergency support phone number, whatever that device is named, right? And if they don't pick up, then in the second pull down, I determine what voicemail box is going to, whether that's one of my particular staff members, or if I made a voicemail box for like my after-hours support team. Now, this fourth option, again, this is that special cases where we either created an advanced call flow for you, or you have multiple auto attendants, and you want your main numbers to go to that particular call flow, whether that's one of your secondary attendants for temporary purposes or an advanced call flow. If you don't have this fourth option here, do not worry. That does not mean there's something wrong with your system. You should have those first three. All right, main conference number. You can have multiple conference numbers, right? So you have the option here to add from spare or buy new. You also have the custom greeting option here. This is a text-to-speech greeting, right? So you can enter up to 250 characters, including not counting spaces. If you leave this disabled, the system still says when you call in, welcome to the conference, and then prompts you to enter in the conference room number and the PIN number. The main fax box number, you can only have the one fax box number, right? So I don't have the option to add. Here we have the option to edit the fax box. First up is the inbound notification email, right? This is designed to put in email addresses, typically one, but if you have multiple, it's after the first one, you put a comma and then start the second one, no spaces. And basically, that means anytime a fax comes in, the email address you put here gets an email saying, hey, you received a fax, gives you the date, the time, the phone numbers involved, and then a PDF attachment. Now, if someone calls your fax box number, say from their cell phone, right, they hear fax tones and then they hang up, this person still gets an email saying that there was a failed inbound fax attempt, right? It's going to have the date, the time, the phone numbers involved. There'll be no attachment. Now, if in the email it says it gives a phone number and it says wireless number or wireless caller, that pretty much tells you right off the bat someone dialed the number by mistake. But beyond that, it's if you're expecting a fax or it's a number you recognize, you'd want to check with the person faxing with you to see if they had other information about the failure on their side. Now, or if the failure was on their side or their fax machine returned some sort of additional information. Sorry. The email permissions box, this is designed to put your company's email domain. Once you do so, anyone at your company can send a fax out on the system, even if they're not a user on your Dash account. They just have to know that proper format, that +1 area code and phone number, @ the account realm, attach a PDF or TIFF. All right, auto attendance. This is a plan-specific feature, right? So it's available on some plans, but not all plans. This allows you to create additional auto attendants for instance, for submenuing, right? You want different languages available. So you can say, hey, when people call in, I give a message that tells them to press 1 for English and 2 for Spanish. It repeats again in Spanish, right? Then you would come here, you would create attendants for English and Spanish. So like I have here. And you would make sure that they're available in main menu, right? Then as we go through this in a little bit, you would have a Spanish specific greeting with the menu options. So up here at the top, you click on add attendant. You give it a name and an extension number. Now the extension number, basically for internal use, right? Your customers will never need to know this. Your staff members may want to know this so they can actually transfer calls to the correct attendant if they need to. This should be an extension number that's not already in use, right? You don't want to repeat extension numbers. And then typically you should get an error message when you try to do that. But then you click on create attendant and it shows up here. Now, by default, when you create an attendant, you click on the name, it looks like this. It says unavailable in main menu. That means the system is defaulting the auto attendant as a standalone system, right? The idea is that this is a separate business that you may own, right? And you just wanted them both on the same account, right? Because say you have staff members answering calls from multiple businesses. That's another reason you would use auto attendants. Now, in that submenu option, right, you would instead click it to say it's available in main menu, right? So that way it shows up as a menu option on your accounts. Now, your auto attendants can have their own phone numbers, right? So you can add from spare or buy new. They can have multiple if you want them to. Here's the extension number box. And then we have the wrench icon under settings. And then here you see I have my open hours, after hours, and holidays. That matches what we set up under main number, right? So your secondary tenants have to have the same hours of operation as your main system. So if for some reason, let's say you like Pooch Walk here is a separate business. If I wanted this to be a 24/7 business, but my main system is Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, you'd want to talk to our account services team. They'll be able to better determine if we can address your configuration via some custom configuration, or if it's better to have two accounts. But beyond that, right, this is just the virtual receptionist settings. So you would click on virtual receptionist, you would set up your menu options, you would set up your greetings just like we covered, any settings, and click on save and save changes. And I have a lot of tenants. All right. Next up is devices. This shows all your devices on the account. A red device means it's unregistered, right? So we can't send calls to it. Now, we don't know why, right? Now, in case of like, this looks like a soft phone or web phone, right? This could be they're simply not logged in, right? Black means you've turned it off. Over here under enable, right? So if you just click on this little toggle here, it'll turn it back on. And green means we can send it to this device. Up here at the top, you can add devices. First up is SIP phone. This is that physical phone, right? You have these manufacturers to choose from. Some of them have a lot of models. Some of them only a few. No matter what, you would want to select on the model that you're working with. You need to give it a name, right? I usually say the person's name and the word phone, right? Bob's phone, or location, right? Warehouse phone. And then we need the MAC address. This is unique to each device, typically a sticker on the back of the phone. If the phone's plugged in, typically you can also find the MAC information, typically under like either basic settings or status. You would enter that information here. You would click on create device. After device is created, you would come here. You want to click on the wrench icon here under edit. Go to advanced and select miscellaneous and click unlock to allow for reprovisioning. Right, so allow it to be programmed. The only other thing you would need to do within our dashboard is go to users and assign it to a user. You can also add devices directly to the user, which I find easier myself. Now, in terms of our dashboard, once you've unlocked the phone and assigned it to somebody, and as well as adding it to the dashboard, you're done with our dashboard. However, you need to log into that phone's web user interface, and you need to basically tell it to go to a URL. Basically say, hey, go here to grab your configuration file. It will do so. It will reboot a couple times and then show up as a green device. For the specifics of that, you want to go to our support pages, and you're looking for the document called Auto Provisioning Phones. A cell phone and landline are basically the same, right? You give it a name, right? So Angela's phone, and then here under number, you put +1 area code and phone number, and then you click on create device. Let me go down here to the demo device. So here, right, you see I've given it a name, and under number, I have +1 area code and phone number. Now, if I go over to advanced and options, this is the default setup for a cell phone or landline. I'm going to explain a little bit how Dash handles calls to a cell phone or landline. First thing to know, when we send calls to a cell phone or landline, that's an endpoint, right? When you pick up a call, when we send a call and your cell phone number rings and you answer it, you're not going to be able to transfer that call, right? You have to handle it or have to ask the person to call back to speak to the right person. Now, when that call gets offered to you, right, your cell phone number rings, you'll pick up. By default, you're going to hear a message say, this is a forwarded call. Please press 1. When you press 1, you're telling the system, yes, you're there, and yes, you want to take the call. Now, you have to press 1 fairly quickly. You're not given a whole lot of time. So that it's probably be like that first time you might miss it, right, and may not be able to press 1. But hopefully after a couple attempts, you'll know to press 1 right away. Now, when we're in the case where we're sending calls to a person, right, pressing 1, that kind of makes sense. It's a way for your staff members to know, oh, this is a work call, right, when they hear it. However, let's say you have contracted with an automated answering service to handle your after-hours calls, right? So they gave you a phone number. Say, hey, just send your calls to this phone number and we'll handle the calls. So you would add that phone number here as a device, as either a cell phone or a landline. But what you would want to do is under these advanced options, click here where it says allow use of cell phone's voicemail. So now when we send the call to the phone number, when we hear that pickup tone, we connect the call, right? There's no message about this is a forwarded call and pressing 1. There's no need to press 1. Right? Basically, we hear pickup tone, call connected, which is what you would want when you're sending calls to an answering service. Now, if this is really your cell phone, I don't know if it's a downside, but something to be aware of is if you have this set up on your personal cell phone, right, this setting, what can happen is your personal cell phone voicemails, right, can pick up. That's still a pickup tone. So that means your inbound call can end up on your personal cell phone's voicemail box. Some people want that, some people don't. The other thing that comes up is keep original caller ID. So customer Mary calls into the system, reaches your cell phone. On your cell phone, you'll see customer Mary's phone number. Now, if you've been getting hit with a lot of robodialers and you don't recognize the number, I'm just going to let it go to voicemail. Maybe you're able to circle back around and talk to customer Mary, maybe not. But if you uncheck this, right, click on Save Changes, instead of seeing customer Mary's phone number, you go back to the dashboard. This phone number that you selected here is what would show up. So hopefully you would recognize your main company number and say, oh, this is a work call. Let me answer it. A soft phone, if you add a soft phone here on the devices tab, or devices page, this only lets you add a third-party soft phone, meaning you're using someone else's soft phone app, not the VirtualPBX soft phone. But you would give it a name. Then under the SIP username, you'd want to copy and paste that. Then under SIP password, click on the SIP password box so you can see the password. Do not change it. Copy and paste that. And then here is your account realm. Those are the 3 pieces of information you would need to program or provision that third-party application. Now, if you want to use the VirtualPBX soft phone app, you need to add the soft phone directly to the user, which we'll be getting to shortly. And the same thing would apply to the web phone. You want to add the web phone directly to the user. Now, some things to know is for VoIP phones, if you click on the little wrench icon, again, under advanced, the emergency caller ID, right? This is where you would select one of your other phone numbers to have the correct address show up for this person, right? So for E91 purposes. In terms of audio, for physical phones, you want to have G711A and G711U over here to the right? It's just click and drag. right? If you're using the VirtualPBX soft phone, actually any soft phone, we typically recommend for the audio to have Opus, right? Again, you would click and drag. All right, Greetings Manager shows all your media files on the account. I have 62 files. That's quite a lot. You can add new files up here, right? Click, give it a name, find the file on your computer, click on Create Greeting. Again, mp3.wave recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Here, right, you have the name of the file, the source, upload, right? You just uploaded the file, TTS, text to speech, and recording means it was recorded over the phone. This column here allows you to play back the file in your browser. If for some reason that doesn't work, then you have the option here to download the file to your device and listen to it that way. And then a little wrench icon, this allows you to change the name of a file or delete it completely. If you don't need it, 62 different kind of media files. I probably need to go through this and prune this down at some point. All right, groups. Bring groups or hunt groups is another term for them. Departments. Up here at the top, you click Add Group. You give it a name. You give it an extension number. And then you click and drag your staff members that you want to be in the group. You click on Create Group. Once a group is created, you can click on its name. Right, so you can change the name, and then you have the group call attempts. I was misreading that for some reason. Little arrows here to the right, so you can increase or decrease it as necessary. But this is basically how many times you're telling the system to offer calls to the members of the group. Right, you also have the option to delete a group if you no longer need it, and then you would save changes. Then you have the members box. If you click on that, you see all your staff members that you've assigned to the group. Down here at the bottom, you can add more people if you need to. So we can add JTest here. And then I can click and drag so that way he's equal to everybody in terms of he's being offered a call the same amount of time. If I need to remove someone, I just click remove. I just simply remove them from the group. Up here along the top are timestamps. In this last box, you can edit. The default for a new group is 120 seconds, right? 2 minutes. You can increase or decrease that as you need to. You also have this distribute button. If you click on distribute, now calls will always ring in this order, right? So Bob always gets the call first, then it goes to Aaron, then Peter, etc. Now, one thing to know, in this kind of setup, let's say the call comes in, Bob's helping that customer. If a second call comes in, Bob is still offered the call first. It doesn't skip him, right? So then after 20 seconds, that second caller then rolls over to Aaron, right? Aaron picks up, right? So now Bob and Aaron are both on calls. A third call comes in. Well, that third caller has to wait 40 seconds before someone is probably going to answer. So that's a case where you probably want to have like more overlap on these sliders, so that way you don't have people waiting on hold for too long. Right? That's difference between a group and a queue, right? Queues know when someone's on a call, so it doesn't even offer it to someone who's on a call. It just skips to the next person. Another thing to know about calls from a group to a user is that the call from the group, let's say to Bob, it's going to ring all of his devices, right? So if Bob got like 4 phones on his user, all 4 of them ring at the same time, right? There's a user feature called Follow Me. Calls from the group ignore that feature completely. Just brings all the devices there. Now, if I want to change the order around, right? So let's say I want to put myself first. I can move Bob to the bottom, etc. Now, I haven't changed the order because Bob here is still at 0 seconds. But if I click distribute, now I'm at the first, right? But again, you can always click and drag to adjust the ring times. And then any changes you make, click on Save Changes. Groups can have their own phone numbers. All right, you can either add from spare or buy new. They can have multiple phone numbers if you want them to. However, phone numbers on a group or on a user for that matter, right? They're not a main number or auto attendant number. So that means they don't have hours of operation. So the number is available 24/7. And then we have group features. First step is ring back. So when a call comes into the group, right, reaches out to your users. When their phones ring, that ringing sound is then piped back to the inbound caller. Ring back. Now, if you don't want that ringing sound to go back to the inbound caller, you can instead enable this feature and then upload your own media file, right? .wav, .mp3, recorded in mono. You would click upload and save changes. Now, in terms of the media file, you want to make sure that it is longer than your total ring time in the queue, or in the group, excuse me. Right? So if it's short, right? Let's say your ring time in the group is 120 seconds, but you have a media file that only plays 30 seconds. Well, the system will basically start over after 30 seconds. Says, oh, hit the end of the media file, start over, and start the next ring attempt. Next action, when you enable this, to me, this is the most important group feature. It's because if no one answers, where do you want to send the call? You have this pull down, you can send it back to your main menu. You can send it to an advanced call flow, a call queue, another group, a specific user, or most likely a voicemail box. Allow call forward. If you enable this, that means you're allowing your users to make use of call forwarding. Right? So they're not, let's say user Angel only has her VoIP phone, right? That's the only device on her user, but she's going to go on site to a customer. So what she could do then is, if you have call forwarding enabled, she can enable forwarding on her VoIP phone to send calls to her cell phone, right? So she can still take group calls when she's not otherwise occupied. Caller ID prepend, this is for your VoIP phone users. You can add either text or numbers in front of the caller ID that shows up on your staff members' VoIP phones. Again, to give them a heads up about what might be happening. All right, numbers. Numbers in use shows where your numbers are being used. You can't unassign them or assign them here. It's just showing you where they are. You can access the gear icon, so you can update the caller ID or the E911 or prepend settings. The spare numbers tab, this is numbers that you're not using. Now, if you want to remove these numbers from your account, then what you would do is, let's say this 424 number, you click on the box in front of it, and now up here I have the option to delete it. Get rid of this toll-free number as well. Click delete numbers, and now the numbers are removed from my account. So if I was over my allotment of phone numbers, I just save some money on my next invoice. All right, by numbers, local and toll-free, so I can add more numbers to my spare number list, i.e., let's say I'm about to open a new location, I can get a phone number in the correct location. Now, in general, I do recommend that when you get a new number, you put it someplace where you can test it to make sure it's working properly, and then move it back to spare. A port, this starts the port process. You just click on new port request, give it a name, choose local or toll-free, and then you need to upload a copy of your bill. It should be dated within 30 days. And then you basically follow the steps. Basically, the system's going to want your address that's associated on that bill, the phone numbers that you're going to port, the BTN, which is the billing telephone number. If you're porting one phone number, right, then that phone number is the BTN. If you're porting multiple, you may need to talk to your current carrier to find out which one is the BTN. Some carriers do require a PIN to port out. This is typically different than the PIN like you use to access customer service with them. So you may need to check with them on that. This is typically, we've seen this with wireless carriers, right? Cell phone carriers. Because if a cell phone number ports out, right, the cell phone that's associated with will stop working. That's why they have that extra layer of security. Then you'll be asked to, be given an opportunity to download a blank letter of agency or LOA, and then you can upload a completed and signed version of that document. The information that it asks you on that LOA, right, has the name of the business that your current carrier has on file, as well as the address. It does need a signature, whether that means you printed it out, signed it, and like took a picture of it or scanned it back into a computer, or you have a digital signature file that you use, right? Typing in your name twice or typing and printing your name will not work. It will get rejected. Generally speaking, toll-free numbers take about 3 to 5 business days. I usually just say expect a full week. Local numbers average 2 to 3 weeks. And that assumes everything is correct. If there's an error, where we get a rejection, we double check to make sure there wasn't a typo, or like in the case of an address, if there is another address we can try. Like there's one on the, like you have one on your LOA and a different one on your bill copy. We'll try them both. But then if that doesn't go through, right, then we let you know, hey, we got a rejection for this reason. You're going to want to talk to your current carrier to find out what the correct information is. Users shows all the users on the account. A gray person, right, that's just standard user, right? So they don't have access to much of anything. Little blue suit, that means they're a system admin, meaning they can do everything we're talking about today. Up here at the top, that's where you add a new user. You basically fill out the form, right? First name, last name. Email address used for login needs to be unique for each user, right? You cannot reuse an email address for multiple people. Then you create a password for them. And then you have the main extension, right? So you can enter the extension number for them. The system will suggest an extension number for you. You don't have to use it, right? I can type in something like that if I wanted to. Now, by default, the system will create a voicemail box for the user at the same time. It's intrinsically tied to that user. Up to you if you want to have them show up in the user directory. You can change your mind on that later. Send emails to an alternate address. Now, by default, if the system needs to communicate with someone on the system, it does so via email. And it does so then sorry. So yeah, it's a system like it's like voicemail notifications or password resets. By default, we send it to the email address used for login. But if for some reason you need those emails to go somewhere else, then you click here and enter that other alternate email address here. And then lastly, to me the most important, send credentials to the user, right? So that way they get an email welcoming them to your Dash account with their login information. If you're only creating one user, just click on Create User. If you have to add multiple, create user and add another. Once a user is created, you can click on their name. Oops. So you can always change the name, right? Like someone changes their name legally. Up here, you can change their credentials, right? So you can change their email address, their password. You also have the option here to send the password reset email directly to them. Here's where you would change their voicemail box PIN number. Here's your option to send to an alternate address. Here's the option to include in the user directory. Now, this pull down here allows you to change a user into an admin or an admin into a user. This is your time zone for the user, right? So you can do a search. Right, so I can change it to the appropriate time zone for that user if I wanted to. Or just leave it on the account default. The flag is for the display language, English, French, German, or Russian. That's for these web pages. The ringing timeout measured in seconds by default is 20 seconds. That's plenty of times to send calls to a landline or a VoIP phone. If someone's using only a cell phone, you'd want to increase this to 30 to 45 seconds. It simply takes longer to route a call to a cell phone because the cell phone carrier has to find that cell phone first before you can route the call to it. All right, extensions. Users can have multiple extensions if you want them to, right? Just add another extension. Users can have their own phone number or multiple phone numbers, right? You can add from spare or buy new. Again, this phone number is available 24/7, so if they have their personal cell phone here, they could get calls in the middle of the night. And here is where you can add devices to the user. Again, I find it easier to add devices directly to the user, whether it's a SIP phone, cell phone, etc. For the soft phone, you still get the warning message. And here, right, it starts off again, defaults to say use third-party application, right? Right down here at the bottom, a little bit grayed out. It's just below the configuration guide link. When you click on that, now it says use a virtual PBX application. You give it a name, you click on create device, and then you would click on save changes. Once you click on save changes, then this email address gets an email saying that their new soft phone is ready for use, and it gives them the login information as well as download links. Right, web phone, again, you want to do directly on a user because a web phone uses your dash login information. So it does no good if you assign it, if you create it on the devices page, it's not useful. But once you give it a name, click on create device and click on save changes on a user, now it's associated with a person on your account. It uses that, in this case, Ariel's email address and password that he uses to log into Dash on the web phone page. All right, user features, the caller ID number, this only works for users that have their own phone number. When you enable it, you select the phone number, and this phone number becomes their outbound caller ID, right? Not the main phone number on the account, but this phone number on their user. Right? Typically, something like salespeople would want, right? So that way, when they're calling prospects, that prospect calls them directly versus trying to go through the main system. Virtual text is a new feature. You click enable, you select the phone number on the account. It's either a main number, auto attendant number, or a phone number associated with the user. You click on save changes. This person gets an email logging them to virtual text. They can then download the virtual text app directly to their cell phone, or they can go to, in their browser, they can go to virtualtext.app, log in over the web, and text that way. The advantage of virtual text is you can share your number among your staff members, so multiple people can handle interacting via text with your customers. So it's possible that a new staff member could get 3 emails with 3 different logins, right? You have your Dash login information, a soft phone app login information, and virtual text app login information. Voicemail box, and this will be basically default. Now, transcription, as far as I know, is still a plan-specific feature. What it is the system listens to the voicemail in the voicemail box and then tries to type it out in the email notification to the best of its ability. Right? If people are not speaking into the microphone or the microphone picks up a lot of background noise, that's going to impact the quality of that transcription. But by default, voicemail to email is enabled, and that means we attach an MP3 file to the email notification, right? So call comes in to this user, someone leaves a voicemail, they get an email saying, hey, you got a phone call for, the phone number, the date, the phone number's involved, the date, the time, the extension number. Here's an MP3 file to listen to the email, to the voicemail. If transcription is enabled, that means in the body of that email, there'll also be the system's attempt to transcribe that email. Voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. After that, they are full and cannot accept any more. Now, in this default setup, your staff member has multiple ways where they can check voicemail. First is via that email. However, when they check it via email, that's it, right? They just listen to the message. They're not removing it from their voicemail box. But they can call in over the phone, right? Listen to their voicemail over the phone. If they have a VoIP phone, they just hit *98 on their VoIP phone, hit send. That logs them directly into the voicemail box. The system asks them for the PIN. Then they start listening to voicemail. If they're doing it from a cell phone, they need to call your main number and then enter *97 at the main greeting. Or they can also check their voicemails via the user portal, which we'll get to in a bit. And that's where, both over the phone and via the user portal, they can delete messages. Now, if people are bad about deleting messages, then you have this option here where you can delete the message from the voicemail box after we send out that notification. That means your user can only ever check their voicemail messages via email. So if for some reason they're not getting emails, they may be losing voicemails. Follow Me is for users with multiple devices, and that's not going to work on this user. So let's go up here to Aaron. And this allows you to tell the system how to handle calls to your user. Now, again, the follow me feature is ignored from calls from a group, right? So in that case, if Aaron's in a group, he gets a call from it, both of his phones are going to ring. Now, if someone enters Aaron's extension number directly, or someone transfers a call to Aaron, then the follow me settings come into play. So in this instance right now, calls ring the cell phone first. If he doesn't pick up there, then it rings, looks like a soft phone. So hold on. When you first enable it, it looks like this, because you have to tell the system which devices you want it to use, right? So you uncheck what you want it to use. And again, you have timestamp up here, defaults to 120 seconds. Just like in groups, right? You can change the order and click distribute. You can also overlap the ringing time if you want to. You don't have to have all your devices ring, right? I could just say, hey, I just want this device to ring. Right? The cell phone's a backup, only used in special circumstances. Fax box, you can choose to have a user have their own fax box. Now, you can use either an actual phone number for their fax box or an extension. I personally recommend using a phone number. That means that allows the user to send and receive faxes. If you use an extension number, that means this person can only ever receive a fax. They'll never be able to send out. But beyond that, and the other thing is, it's possible that some electronic fax services will not allow the sender to send to an extension. Right? Most of the ones I've seen so far anyway, they only allow to send to a phone number. There's no option to include an extension number. But you would either select the spare number or buy a new number and add it here, and then click on Save Changes. That means when anyone sends a fax to this phone number, it goes directly to this email address, and then this person can have that same format to fax out. Conference Bridge. As an admin, once you enable a Conference Bridge, the main thing you need to do is give them a conference room PIN number, and then click on Save Changes. The enable video conferencing, if you enable that, that's just for your Dash users. Right? Someone outside of the system will not be able to make use of video conferencing. Call forwarding, you have a couple options here, right? You have off, on, and failover mode. Failover mode is something a system admin has to set up, but turning it off or on is something your staff members can also set up on their own, either directly from their VoIP phone or via the user portal. Failover mode is if let's say their Yailing phone goes offline, right, becomes unregistered, and a call comes into their user. If you have failover mode set up, then that call would automatically route to the phone number you designated. Right? So that way you're not missing a call, or your staff member isn't missing a call. They can handle that call and then investigate why their VoIP phone stopped working. Like the dog ran by and ripped a cable out or something like that. Customized call recording. So you can choose to have your calls recorded on any of your users, right? You would click enable. Starts off looking like this, right? Nothing is actually going to be recording at this point because you have to tell the system what kind of calls you want to record. Inbound or internal means coworker call, right? So coworker Bob called Ariel, right? Inbound external, customer Mary called. Right? Outbound internal means Ariel called coworker Bob. Right? Outbound external, Ariel called customer Mary. Or you can do all four or any combination. And you click on Save Changes. Now, every account includes some level of storage, data storage. It's part of your monthly plan price. If you have a high call volume and you're recording every call, strongly recommended that you make use of AWS. You may need to talk to our account services team to get that integration enabled on your account. And then you need to have an AWS account. But typically speaking, at higher levels of data storage, AWS pricing is better than ours. Music on hold. You can choose to have your staff members have their own hold music. You just upload a file, .wav, .mp3, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte, find the file on your device, click the up arrow icon, click on Save Changes. This will play then instead of that file uploaded onto the dashboard page. Do not disturb. If you turn this on a user, that means they're not going to be offered calls. Right? The call will go to voicemail. Hot desking, this is a VoIP phone feature, and it's designed for use within like a shared office environment or hybrid scheduling. So if I enable it, I give a hot desk ID. I usually say if you make use of 4-digit extensions, just make the hot desk ID number match their extension number. Up to you if you want to include a PIN number or not. Click on Save Changes. So we'll say Aaron comes into the office on Tuesday. He sits down at desk number 2. He picks up that VoIP phone. He hits *11 on the VoIP phone. Click Send. The system will then ask him for his hot desk ID number and PIN number if applicable. And then it'll say calls will now be sent to this device. So the rest of his workday that he's sitting at desk number 2, calls will come to that desk, that phone. End of his day, he picks up the handset, hits *12 to turn off hot desk. Next time he's in the office, let's say that's Thursday. Same procedure, whether he's sitting at desk number 2 or he's sitting at desk number 25. Picks up the phone, hits *11, enter hot desk ID, calls will now come to him at that device. Voicemail boxes. So here you'll see all your voicemail boxes on the account, right? So your users should have one here, right? Because you typically, by default, you're creating a voicemail box for the user. But up here at the top, you can create your own voicemail boxes, right? For like departments, right? So you give it a name, you give it a voicemail box number, right? So one that you're not already using, and then a PIN number, typically 4 digits. Then you click on Create Voicemail Box Number. Now, you're not able to directly transfer a call to a voicemail box number, right? You can transfer calls to an extension number, but not a voicemail box number. It can still be a voicemail box, can be a menu option, right, under the virtual receptionist. But when like someone's calling in and you tell them enter, 5522 to leave a message, unless that's an actual user's voice extension number, that won't work, right? Anyway, so once a voicemail box is created, you click on the little wrench icon here. Right, this basic view, this allows you to see the voicemail box number, the PIN number, so in case you need to call in over the phone, right, either to check messages or to change the greeting. If you go to Advanced Greeting Media, you can upload a file, right, .wav.mp3 recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. And you see you've got two options here, the media file and the temporary file. The temporary is for your out of office or vacation message, right? So if you have something selected here, it will play. Right, and then, so if you have two media files selected, one under media, one under temporary, the temporary file plays. Once you send temporary back to none, then the media file plays. All right, then you have recipients. So your user voicemail boxes already have one built-in recipient, right, the email address used for login. But for any voicemail box, you can click on Add New Recipient, enter an email address. If you only need to add one, click on Save Changes. Otherwise, click on Add Again to add another row. Enter more email addresses. This is something you would want to do for any voicemail box you create on this page, right? You at least want to do one, if not multiple. And then options. So once a voicemail box already has a recipient and a media file in place, you can check Already Set Up, right? And you can double check, that you have attached emails to voicemail message. Up to you if you want to delete after notification or not, etc. And then click on Save Changes. Advanced routing, this is typically where you'll see direct inward system access. We also refer to it as DISA. DISA allows you to call into your system from a cell phone or a landline, log in over the phone, and then make an outbound call through your system. Right? So that way when that outbound call goes out, it's not your cell phone number that shows up as the outbound caller ID, it's your main number. Now, this feature is not enabled on new accounts at sign up. It's something you have to talk to our account services team about. And that's because it's possible that this could open you up to some fraud. All right, so once it's enabled on, this is actually here, let's disable this right now. Let's go back to a base setting. All right, so first you enable it. And then here you see it assigns a PIN number. If you leave it just like this, that means you need to make DISA a menu option, either under one of your auto attendants or your main number, right? 0 through 9 or the star key. This is not recommended simply because someone might press that option by accident. And then when the system asks them for a PIN number, take that as a challenge and try to figure it out. And then once they hear dial tone, after they figure out the PIN number, they can start making calls out on your account. So what we typically recommend is you click here under Edit Settings and click here, Add an extension number. Now, again, the system by default is saying, hey, your extensions are based off 1000, so it's recommending me an extension number with 1028. I would suggest I would do something different than that sequence, right? So just so it's something completely different, save changes. So now, when you call your main number or your auto attendant number, right, you would enter this extension number. Then the system prompts you for the PIN number. Then you hear dial tone, then you enter area code and phone number and make your outbound call, right? Just that extra layer of protection. So that way you're not getting, someone figuring it out and then making outbound calls on your account and you don't know about it until your invoice. However, you can use the call logs to see your account's call history. The green arrow to the right is an inbound call coming into your system. Yellow arrow to the left is a call leaving your system, an outbound call. Normally they denote right. You can click on a call to expand it to see if there's more information. Let's go to a custom view here. Click on filter. I'm just looking for a decent sample of showing it going to multiple devices. I'm sorry about this. Here we go. So you can see here, call came in, offered to this device. Normal clearing is what you want to see for most of the calls. That means the system said, hey, the call ended normally. Anything else, right, could be like call rejected means the inbound or the receiving person didn't accept the call. If you see something like recovery on time or expire, that normally indicates a network issue when it going to a VoIP phone. Usually that's a router setting that you have to adjust, etc. Now, the little fire hydrant icon here, this creates an email for you that goes to support@virtualpbx.com. It will have the technical details of the call. Now, when you do that, you want to type in the body of the email why you're sending the call, that technical details into us, right? We'll see the technical details, but we may not know like, well, what happened or why exactly are you sending the call, right? That will help us better be able to give you a response instead of asking you for, hey, what happened, etc. Now, any of these today, this week, this month, you can download. It's a CSV file. Same with the custom. This filter here, right, the start end date, the system will let you go back up to 1 year. If you need to go further than that, then we'd have to escalate that up to engineering team. They can go back a total of 18 months. Anything beyond that, they're not able to recover. Right? The data simply is not there. So if you need your call log data for some sort of compliance reasons, I would recommend you do this every month. Right? Just download them and then you can label it the appropriate month and year. Feature codes, I've already talked about a couple of these. These are basically ways for your VoIP phone users to access Dash features directly from their VoIP phone. This is a web page on our support pages. There's also a document called the phone commands cheat sheet, which has the commands as well as little help icons here. All right, that's the dashboard. Let's go through some of this. Over here on the left is the blacklist. This allows you to create a list of phone numbers that you are blocking from reaching your system. Right? They essentially would get busy tone every time they try to call in. So what you would do is click Edit Blacklist. If you don't have one, you click on Add to create a new list. Otherwise, right, once you have a list, once you click Add, you give it a name, and then you choose if you're blocking anonymous calls or not. Right? That means if we're not getting valid inbound caller ID, and you turn this on, you're blocking them from reaching your system. Right? If you leave it off, then they're coming through. Then down here, you click Add Number. You put +1 area code and phone number. No spaces, dashes, or parentheses, just the +1 area code and number. Keep clicking Add for every phone number you want to block until you're done. Right? Then you would click on Save here. You go back to Settings up here at the top. And then you want to make sure your list is over here on the right under Selected. Right? So you might need to click and drag it as necessary, and then click Update. Faxes take you to your fax manager, so you can see any fax box on the account. Right here, I'm under incoming faxes, so I can see that a fax came in before Christmas here from this phone number to this phone number. The pages, I can download the file. Right, I can choose to delete it if I put a check mark in front of it. Outbound fax tab, again, you select the fax box you want to work with. You see, again, there's a successful fax out, again, just before Christmas. Sending from, here's the number it went to, number of pages, I can download the file. By check mark, I can delete it or forward it. Now, if you see a fax that has a failure in front of it, if you hover over the fail information, it might give you a pop-up with additional information about why it failed. Or you can click on the little detailed icon that might give you more information. And that means that we had a problem communicating with other fax number. Right, so we processed your document, we sent it out, and then we had a problem. Whether that means that number rang busy, which usually comes up as user busy, or we actually connected initially, but then something interrupted the flow of data. The email to fax logs, right? This shows you a problem processing the request, right? So we never made the call out yet. Now, you can click on the little eyeball icon here to the far right, and you see here the error is no valid attachments. That could be someone didn't actually send an attachment, right? They forgot to attach the document. That happens. Or they chose an attachment that wasn't a PDF or a TIFF file. See if there's anything else. The other thing that can come up is that the person isn't a user on the account. That usually comes up when someone uses their personal email address instead of the work email address. All right, number manager, this just takes you back to your spare number page. Reports will actually open up a new, this is actually a plan-specific feature. If you have it enabled, it will open up a new tab and take you to reports.virtualpbx.com. This allows you to create your own custom reports. On our YouTube channel, you want to go under videos and do a search for advanced reporting demo. That will better show you what can be done, because unfortunately that link does not work on this streaming software. Voicemails, this just lets you go to any of your voicemail boxes. Oops, wrong thing. And then you can see what voicemails are in that particular voicemail box. As an admin, right, you can play it back, download it. Also, you can move it to a different voicemail box. Right, you can also change its status, new, deleted, etc. Right, ACD queues. ACD stands for automatic call distribution. It's a call center feature. It's an upgrade to existing plans. Now, so it's possible you may need to upgrade plans before you can add the queues on as an upgrade, and then yeah, the upgrade fee per queue. Basically, these are an advanced version of groups, right? Groups have the very simple routing, right? Either you're ringing an order or you're ringing everybody, right? And it doesn't skip people. Whereas queues, the system knows when they're on a queue call, so it won't even try to offer it to them. So first up, you would add new queue. I'm just going to click on an existing queue's gear icon here. Right? You need to give it a name, and then you choose either to add a phone number, right? So either select a spare number or buy a new number, or just an extension number. Now this is for ways to enter the queue. Right? Now this is on top of being a menu option, right? Under your virtual receptionist or auto attendants. Then you have the routing strategy. Unfortunately, the pull down doesn't work, but round robin will equalize out over time. Most idle means whoever's been waiting the longest gets a nice call. Least calls means the least amount of connected calls. And then least offers, the combination of missed and connected calls. Hold treatment. Oh, I should explain something. We have two kinds of queues on the account, or available, excuse me. You can have either standard queues, which is what I'm showing here, or ACD queues Pro. You can only have one or the other. You cannot have both. So I can only show you the one type. However, under the YouTube channel, you can look up the ACD queues Pro demo, and that will show you some of the differences here. Hold treatment, for example, you can upload a media file, right? .wav, .mp3. For the queues, you can upload a 5 megabyte file. Now on the Pro queues, you can have multiple media files play, right? You can have them play in sequence. And on the Pro queues, you can do things like announce the person's wait in line or expected wait time. Whereas on the standard queues, it's just hold music. Queue timeout measured in seconds. This is how much time your inbound callers can wait on hold. Right, so you can adjust this to say like 600 seconds, right? 10 minutes. Queue call limit is how many people can wait on hold. This is on top of whoever's already talking to your staff members, right? So Bob and Mary are handling customer calls. 4 other people can wait on hold in this instance. If I change it to 0, that means there's no limit, right? I can have unlimited number of people waiting on hold. Timeout immediately if empty. If I enable this, this means if I have no staff members logged into the queue and a call comes into the queue, the system will treat that caller as if they've already hit the queue timeout second, queue timeout. Yeah, excuse me. Escalation call flow after timeout. So after that timeout has been hit, what do you want to do with the call? And this pull down will let you know give you your options, right? You can send it to another queue. You can send it back to your virtual receptionist, right? You can send it to a group. You can send it to a user or a voicemail box. Zero out call flow. If you have something selected here in this pull down, that enables this feature. And that just means your inbound callers, while they're waiting on hold, they can press 0 at any time and then leave the queue to where you designate. Right? If you set this to none, that means your inbound callers either have to wait on hold until someone picks up or they hang up. If you do have something like this enabled, the system will not tell the inbound caller about it. You'd have to incorporate that as part of your hold music. Agent behavior. So agent recovery time measured in seconds. This is how much time the system waits before it offers a staff member a second call from the queue. Usually we see anywhere from 0 to 30 seconds. Basically time to get a drink of water, right? Or sip of water, probably, as they have at your desk. Finish notes, what have you. Force away on reject or missed. If this is enabled, that means if a staff member misses a call, the system will automatically mark them as away until they manually mark themselves as ready again. And then agent connect timeout measured in seconds. The default is 20 seconds. Queues were designed originally with VoIP phones only in mind, but now you can use cell phones or landlines. So for any staff member, if you have staff members making use of cell phones, you're going to want to increase this to at least 30 seconds, possibly longer. And then you would click on create queue if you're creating a queue, otherwise save changes. Once you have queues created, over here on the left, you want to click on members. and then you would click on Manage Members, right? The reason I have a list here is I've already assigned staff members to be available in queues. But when you click on Manage Members, that's where you would choose who's going to be a queue member. Right? You would just, let's see here. Right? You would click on name or multiple names, and then you would click on Add as Member. And we'll see Marcus here now. Right? Likewise, if you click on their name and click on Remove, that would remove them from the list. But once you've added your people, your staff members over here into the call centers, then you can go back to the queues. And if you click on the name of the queue here, since I have no one logged in, I can click on Add Agents, and I can move people. I can click and drag people over or move them out. Like so. Click on Save Changes. Once you've added agents, then you can click on Add Managers and choose among those agents who's an actual manager, right? So I've already selected 3 people over here, but again, same idea, right? Click and drag, and then click on Save Changes. So once you've assigned staff members to a queue, right, the D&D toggle will be removed the next time they log in, and then they'll have ACD queues as an option here. They would start by clicking on Begin Session, and that logs them into any queue that they've been assigned to, but they start off in away mode. They should then click on the little phone icon here and select their default device they want to use. Right now, the system will default to select all. That doesn't consistently work, at least not that I've seen. So you definitely want them to select a specific device. Then up here at the top where it says away, right, their status, they would mark themselves as ready. And if we see here, right, I am here, I'm ready, I have a green bar. And so any call that comes into me will ring to my cell phone or my soft phone, excuse me. Now, when it comes to say like lunchtime or I get called into a meeting, I would just change my status to mark as away. When I come back from lunch, I would mark myself as ready, right? And then end of my day, I click End Session. You can also use feature codes to do the login and log out, mark ready or away as well. Right. Dynamic caller ID, a plan-specific feature. This allows you to create rules to change the outbound caller ID for your VoIP phones. So you would create a new rule. I'm just going to edit an existing rule here. So you give it a name, right? So I can say 408 area code, right? I select the phone number on my account from the pull down here, and then I select the parameter. In this case, I'm saying whenever the area code matches 408, change the outbound caller ID to this 408 phone number. Right, so my staff members don't have to think about it. They just dial a number. The system will change it on the outbound caller ID automatically. This one here is I am instead making use of a feature code. So now I'm saying staff member, dial *550, then the area code and phone number. When they do so, the system will change the outbound caller ID to this 323 phone number. Right, so they have to think about it. Those are the main 2 uses of that. Now, if you have like you have someone who's using just a static caller ID, like they're only calling one area, or you don't care, you don't need to make use of this feature, right? This is mostly it's like, hey, you have staff members who call several different areas, and you want to look like you're in the same area code as the person you're calling, or at least nearby. That's why you would use this. Monitor, another plan-specific feature. This allows you to see the status of all your staff members. Doesn't matter what device they're using. There'll be like little blue boxes when they're on a call. All right, so this is under all. This is devices. This is who's busy. Right now, I'm sorry, here's devices. Excuse me. Over here, active inbound calls, each one would have a box, and it would show you who among your staff they're speaking to is being spoken to, and what phone number. If someone made use of the parking feature codes, they would show up here, and what parking spot number that caller is on. Recording Manager, this will take you by default. We'll open up a new tab and take you to recordings.virtualpbx.com. That's where you would see your call recordings, where you can listen to them, download them, etc. If you're making use of AWS, this would actually link to your AWS account, and so you would see your recordings there, again, to listen, download, or delete. Webhooks is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to link your Dash account to other software. This is actually requires some level of programming. This is actually a little beyond me. I've been trying to learn this as I can, but I'm not always a quick learner. You would basically fill out the form, create the webhook, and then use that to link it to another piece of software. Typically, or the most common example we have is Zapier. On our YouTube channel, there should be under videos a webinar for introduction to Zapier, which will cover some of webhooks since it's linking to other software. Additionally, you can go to developer.virtualpbx.com to see samples of code and other examples of how we've linked Dash to other software. And then lastly, we have the user portal. Every user has their own user portal, right? So as an admin, you can't access someone else's user portal, but you would get to all the information on your own anyhow, right? So they start off on voicemails, so they can view their voicemails, they can listen to them, they can download them, right? User could also change the status to either leave it as new, I can mark it as listened, right? So it wouldn't show up on my VoIP phone as hey, you have a waiting voicemail. Likewise, I can say, hey, mark it for deletion to get rid of it in case I'm running full. The call history tab, I can see my particular call history. Oh, interesting. There we go. Right, and I can change the number of entries and scroll through the pages. Oh, maybe I can't. Interesting. Fax tab only works for a user that has their own fax box. So I don't have anything here. The contact list is a read-only, right? So I can see the other users, the groups, ACD queues, auto attendance, and how to transfer them if necessary. The conference tab, this is where your staff members manage their conference settings. Over here on the right, they can change their PIN numbers, right? So the moderator PIN number is what they use, as well as the participant PIN number, which for anyone who's joining them would use. And then you have, do people join muted or do people join deafened? And then play entry and exit tones. While they're in a conference, they can come to this page. They can invite other Dash users to their conference. Here they can lock the conference so no one else can join. They can mute everybody, unmute everybody, or end the conference call. Also, while they're on a call, each moderator and participant has their own box. So that means the moderators can mute a specific person or even kick out a specific person if necessary. And then we have the settings and devices tab. Up here, enable call forward. This is where your staff members handle call forwarding themselves. They just click the box here, put +1 area code and phone number, no spaces, dashes, or parentheses, then click on save, and call forwarding is on. All right. Likewise, they can see the status of their devices. And that is everything. I haven't seen any questions come up under YouTube's chat feature. So I'll give people a minute in case they do have some to put it in, or put in a question. Otherwise, I do thank you for your time today. We do record these trainings. So if you have other staff members who need to be a part of your admin team for your Dash account, you just click the link and send them the link. We do these trainings typically every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time, so you can always come back if necessary. Beyond that, I thank you for your time today and hope you have a wonderful day.